Welcome back to the Duarte Show, and welcome back to the 12th episode of our podcast. Wow, this podcast has made it far. Over the couple of weeks, we have been gathering information and everything that we can cover on this podcast. We have decided, me and my team have decided to more focus on local issues and touch upon here and there on national issues. The things that are affecting people who live in Connecticut and Waterbury has always been a big issue for me as a person. But not only that, a key issue for a lot of residents here in Connecticut. Well, let's have a real talk for a second. A lot of people feel like they have been working harder than ever, and sometimes somehow is still falling behind. Prices are up, rent is up, groceries are up, but paychecks, not really. So people are starting to ask some simple questions. What is actually going on in Hartford? Because at the same time, it stops feeling like bad luck and starts feeling like a system that is just not working for the people anymore. Lamont's time in office is up. We know that for sure. Whoever is the Republican challenger in I believe in May, yeah, in May, whoever's the Republican challenger in May, um, when we find out who the Republican challenger is, we will finally find out who will take on the reins on taking down Ned Lamont. Or, in the case of the independent candidate, taking down Ned Lamont. But the question is, who are the clowns in Hartford, or who are the clowns trying to rip us off? That's why in this episode, we're talking about the clowns ripping us off into Connecticut. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Like in every episode, we always get to the bottom of an issue that faces everyone here. Everyone faces an issue here in our state, local, or national. That is the point of this podcast. To get to the bottom, to get answers, and to see if we have a solution to the problems we face today. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the podcast here on YouTube and Spotify. We hope for you to enjoy the ride and join the youth council revolution. No matter if you're young, old, or middle age, the youth council revolution is open to everyone to fight for the next generation that will be taking over the reins of power when it's our time. Well, our time is now. I hope you enjoy this episode and the segments of this episode, with a big announcement coming up at the end of this episode. Welcome back. You feel it every day. You go to the store and everything costs more. Prices are up on everything here in Connecticut. You look at apartments and everything is out of reach. And you think about your future here in this state. And it feels uncertain, but the craziest part is everyone knows it. Everyone knows it. The politicians in Hartford know it. The the elitist in government know it. Everyone knows what is happening. And everyone knows what's the issue in our state. The simple fact is, who is there to blame? And the thing is, it's not just because everything is more expensive. It's the fact that who is there to actually blame for the crisis we're facing here in our state? You can easily point at our state Congress, state Senate, but let's look a little more deeper. Depending on who you ask, the blame goes in multiple directions. Some blame politicians, some blame big companies, some blame taxes, policing, and sorry, not policing, policies, and the economy and economic policies overall. But here's the truth: it's not just one thing. It's a mix of decisions, a system, and a parties, and priorities and parties that don't line up. Every day, every single day, you wake up, something different happened in our state. Something different is going on, and if we really look at the cause of the issue, The people that we can blame for the issue in our state are simple. We can blame the politicians. We can blame the people, but the people who we can pin this on, really pin this on, is Governor Ned Lamont, former governor Daniel P. Molly. I hope I'm saying his name correctly, and politicians who rather work for money than people. Overall, the clowns in Hartford are disconnected from our communities. For crying out loud, Waterbury is overlooked and called dangerous by these people who don't care about us. If you did care, they wouldn't impose more taxes on low income areas, like the sugary drinks tax, the water tax, the sin tax, the property tax, that people barely can see their paycheck anymore. It's not only that, people are finally realizing that they're ripping us off. And it's finally for the youth in our state to know our government is ripping us off the biggest time with the new taxes. But we can also talk about the disconnect in our state. There's also a big disconnect. You hear people in power talk about growth, progress, success, but when you look around our state, why does it feel so hard just to live in it? The gap between what people are told and what is actually happening and their actual experiences, that there are that's where, trust just, really starts to break down. Lamont's government only is trusted because of the COVID crisis. That is his legacy. And that will be his legacy and what he's most known for. For crying out loud, and not to mention, this guy wants to ban gas powered leaf blowers and turn a blind eye while Connecticut families can barely afford to get by. And the streets are getting more unsafe. Education is going down. And I'm not going to be distracted if this guy has a big effing hammer. And this dude, Lamont, wants to cut $12 million from education and raise taxes on hospitals while families are barely able to afford to live in our state. You want to know why they can't afford to live here? Because of the rising taxes. Oh, but the guy had the biggest tax cut. That doesn't matter. He's the one that imposed the gas tax. He's the one that wants to impose another tax, signed into law, by the way, the sugary drinks tax. That is another tax proposed on you, the residents, that now you have to pay every time you want to get a nice little sugary drink. I'm not saying this whole I love sugary drinks, don't get me wrong, but it's really, really pointless. And other candidates who are running for governor, like Ryan Fazio, he wants to impose another CT deposit. He wants to put a CT deposit on bottles. You know how much taxes are going to go up in our state? They don't even want to cut the car tax. They don't even want to touch the car tax. They don't want to cut it. They don't want to lower the income tax. They don't want to lower the energy. Sorry, we had some technical issues right there. But to continue what I was saying, it's the reason why people can't afford to stay here is because they don't want to lower any of the taxes. They don't want to lower any of the taxes they have, any of them. And you know what? The politicians in Hartford do not give a damn. And you know what? It's time for our people and our residents in our state to finally wake up to understand that these politicians in Hartford are so disconnected to the general public in our state. When is that going to happen? The general question is it's not just numbers or headlines. This is real life. It's students working jobs and still stressed out about money. It's about families cutting back on what they can, do just to stay afloat, just to get by. It's young people wondering if they're able to afford to stay in the place they grew up in. And that becomes normal. That's when people Stop caring. In our state, our government does not care. They don't give a damn. They don't. They really don't. Because if this was really an issue they really want to talk about and they really want to get done, they would have done it 8 years ago. The first time Lamont got in office, they would have done it. And guess what? They haven't. They haven't done a single thing to help families besides what? Giving them rebates of $200, $400. A proposal I can give to these politicians who clearly are running out of ideas. Listen to the people. Listen to them. That's a proposal. Listen to the people of Connecticut, the one that helps you get elected. The one that helps you get elected. Not the lobbyists, not the people who throw millions of dollars at your campaign. Looking at you, Chris Murphy. Not the ones that throw millions of dollars at your campaign. Not APAC. None of that. I am talking about the actual residents of our state. I am talking about the students, the next generation, the youth of our state. I'm talking about hardworking families, small business owners. Listen to them. Go to them. Heck, I will happily invite any lawmaker to our state for them to have real talk. Because the impact that we're seeing is real life. And this is when people start speaking up. And it's time for us, as people who live in our state, and as people who care about our state, it is time that we speak up against this government. And it's time that we fight back through the ballot box. Democracy always wins. It always prevails. Nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. If Connecticut just puts their mind to it, if our state finally locks in and get things done that we need to get done for the next generation and the current climate of our state, we wouldn't have to worry about this 10 years, 9 years, a year down the line. The election is in November. And I say this, and this is a warning. If we continue with the same old, oh, I'm going to fix this problem, but I'm not going to fix the problem, but I'm going to complain about it. When you've been in power for 8 years and you're asking for another 4, our state will decline. People are going to start moving out in droves like birds of a flock. Things are going to get too expensive. And there's going to be way too much taxes. That is my warning to Connecticut. That's my warning to Waterbury. Every city in Connecticut. It's plain and simple. Ned Lamont and the clowns in Hartford are not only disconnected, unserious, they're like gestures and wannabe kings. They want to blame. They want to blame others for issues that they caused. In Waterbury, there was a recent poll, if I can pull it up here. There was a poll recently showing Ned Lamont losing to Mayor Aaron Stewart here in Waterbury, by the way, with 59 to 26, and the other candidates, Ryan Fazio 9, Josh Elliott 4, and the other names, less than 1%. That's a poll from Waterbury, a blue city, by the way. But this is what needs to be changed. So what actually needs changed? That's the first question. What actually needs changed? Well, first thing is we need to start making common sense again. We need to have common sense in our state. If people are working, they should be able to afford basic life. That shouldn't be controversial. Second, there should be more transparency. People want to understand where the money's going and how the decisions are made and why things are cost the way they cost. Third, people need to be introduced in the conversation. Not just politicians, not just corporations, but as I mentioned, hardworking families, regular people, young people, and communities like Waterbury, Bridgeport, New Haven, Plymouth, and Middlebury. We should be in the conversations. Like when I testified in Congress, I said basically I was trying to say is you're worried about cutting this to fund this, but remember, we elect you in November. We have the final say. And if you don't do what the people want, they will vote you out. That's what we've seen in our country. If the people aren't happy with the government, like in 2020, people weren't happy with the way things were working, they will vote you out. That's what we saw every election. If the people didn't like the way a party was controlling, they will vote them out. Plain and simple. Because there's something important. Young people will see all of this. They're not disconnected. We're not unaware. We're watching how things are working or not working. We're asking questions. And honestly, we should be the ones who are going to live with we're going to be the ones, honestly. We're going to be the ones living with the long-term effects of whatever this government is doing. We're the ones who are going to be affected by this governor. We'll talk. We are. And we can do so much better as a state. We can. We can continue the same old BS that we are seeing currently with the clowns in Harvard, the gestures and pawns. Or we can have something different. We can try something different. We can try a leader who can actually put people first and understand where everyone comes from. Any candidate, in my opinion. Josh Elliott, Ryan Fazio, Aaron Stewart, Beffy McCarthy. I hope I'm saying her name correct. We can do that. Connecticut does not have to be a state of where everything costs so much. Lamont is not going to stay in office for long. We know that. He's actually for a third term. You want to know what happened to the last guy that ran a third term? He resigned midway. This is the counter revolution, the youth counter revolution, where young people don't sit back. We speak up, we ask questions, we stay aware. And if you're frustrated too, you're not the only one. And this conversation is just getting started. I will be going on the radio show. I'll get your name right now. I'll be going on the radio show Tuesday, April 2nd, actually. Um, I'll be going on the radio show WTIC, News slash Talk 1080, for an interview with Reese Hopkins, to talk about and warn people about the effects of Lamont and the educational cuts that we're seeing in our state. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Duarte show, and I hope you get an understanding of where I'm coming from, and where the youth from our state are coming from, because we are tired of the same old monarchy we are seeing in our state. Something needs to be done. Something needs to be done quick. And November will be deciding day for many adults who are able to vote. As a young person in our state, I hope the people choose the right candidate, and I hope the voters who are able to vote choose a candidate for our state that can actually see us succeed instead of seeing us set back even more. Well, it's been an honor sharing the Duarte show with all of you. I'll be back next Friday with a full episode on how can Connecticut, or may I say, how can you be connected into the youth council revolution
of the 21st century.
It's WTIC News Talk 1080.
All right, we're about to get up out of here. And I want to give a shout out to this kid. His name is TJ. Let me get his full name here. TJ, I want to say Duarte is his name. Young kid here in Connecticut. And he sent me a note. He's a podcaster, young kid. And if I can, I want to read this for you before I do the Baltimore thing in a second. But he writes, he goes, hello, Mr. Hopkins. I am Tajari. I guess that's how his name is. He says TJ is on his Facebook page, but this is his name, Tajari. I wanted to know if I can get an interview to speak about Ned Lamont's plan to cut $12 million from education, also to empower youth across our country. Hope to hear back. I'm like, wow. I'm like, what organization are you with? Your profile reads nothing. And he says, well, I'm new to podcasting. And he has a show, which is on YouTube. And he also posts on something called Waterbury Talks. I'm not familiar with it. Maybe I am, and I'm just not remembering. And I said, you wish to join the show to talk about the cut to education? Forgive me, I'm currently on the air. And he goes, yes, and that young people should be scared to speak, but because if these cuts happen, magnet schools could go away because of this lack of funding. And I'm like, okay, forward your information. It's a young kid. You guys might remember a couple of weeks ago, maybe even a couple of months ago, I was talking about how we need to start reaching out to some of these young folks who are doing things in broadcasting. They don't even understand if what they are doing is spawned from this medium. And it's just an extension of it. And for someone this young to reach out, you got to sort of pull them into the fold. I would have never known who this young man was, but the fact that he reached out, I'm actually going to call him and have him on the show, and I'm going to see if I can get him in this week. And I don't know, it looks like he might be in school, but you know what? The show's until 6 o'clock, so maybe he can get here immediately after. But I will keep you posted. I'll talk to him immediately after the show, like I said, and see if we can get him here. And maybe we could introduce him to radio, and quite possibly